I don't feel the need to delve too much into Gamin4Hope and his history, as I assume you've most likely already been overexposed to an abundance of content on exactly that. Also, because I have already made that exact video. This video is a follow-up to that video as some new developments have emerged, as well as this being an opportunity to delve deeper into some of the themes briefly discussed in said video without being dragged down by introductions and surface level explanations. For a brief summary, Gamin4Hope is a content creator who in late 2024 stated his intention of going pro in Overwatch. The immediate community reaction was mostly positive, an uplifting and inspiring tale of David Orr and Goliath. The community eventually soured toward Gamin4Hope as unrealistic expectations clashed with reality. Gamin4Hope was never and will never go pro in any significant capacity. This was clear to pretty much anyone entrenched within the competitive community at the onset. The hope of going pro goes from an inspirational tale of human perseverance to a laughable, unfounded dream. Many took the opportunity to mock Gamin4Hope. There's many a video sharing clips or entire compilations of his worst plays. Videos which get hundreds of thousands of views. The general disdain for Gamin4Hope is also in large part due to the controversies which he has found himself within. Most of these controversies are either very over-exaggerated or entirely fabricated. Babies cry sometimes. In fact, they cry a whole lot. And it's not an easy thing to make them stop. The hate which Gamin4Hope receives is in large part due to what I, in my last video, referred to as plat-on-plat crime. Basically, people project their own insecurities about their rank and skill onto Gamin4Hope to feel better about themselves. You might be plat, but at least you're not as bad as Gamin4Hope. An arguably larger reason for the hate is simply in-group versus out-group bias. Social media has shown us that people will very quickly abandon their moral beliefs and critical thinking if the internet at large has deemed it acceptable to bully someone. This video is less about Gamin4Hope and more about the content mill that surrounds him. As I have already mentioned, videos about Gamin4Hope often pull in a very large amount of views, even for less popular channels. But I feel as though it's hard to put into words just how prolific this is. People have made thousands of dollars for making fun of this honestly quite unremarkable man. KeeneyDude is a YouTuber who exclusively uploads stream highlights, or more accurately lowlights, taken from Gamin4Hope's Twitch stream. KeeneyDude is not special in this regard, as over a dozen other channels make the exact same content. What makes him special is that he can accurately be described as the pioneer of this exact content, and that he's the creator who pulls the most views doing it. He uploads just about a video per week, which each get 50 to 100,000 views. I think it would be safe to assume he earns a couple $1,000 monthly doing this. All of this from editing down a stream for hate watchers. The content which this guy and others like him produce is essentially an argument for why Gamin4Hope is bad. That is the narrative which these videos seek to portray. What's really quite funny to me is how poorly it's executed. Most of the clips, given that you are knowledgeable about the game, are really not that bad, even if ignoring the selective editing meant to enforce the narrative. These creators skim through Gamin4Hope's VODs to find clips to paint him as a bad player. Though, due to either lack of care or lack of knowledge, most clips are either incredibly nitpicky or completely redundant to the narrative. Gamin4Hope is no Hanbin or Void, but he is by all metrics a pretty decent player. There's also many commentary videos which have been made about Gamin4Hope. Far too many commentary videos. These videos are by and large very poorly constructed and poorly researched slop. As someone who has made a video about Gamin4Hope and did the bare minimum amount of effort in researching the controversies which are discussed, I can say confidently that no such care has been taken in a majority of these videos. To be clear, it's not that their conclusions differ from mine and are therefore bad, it's the way they reach those conclusions which is bad. Most creators discussing Gamin4Hope are content with blindly parroting already established narratives without any time being given to opposing views. spouting such intelligent drivel, like equating a roughly 7-year age gap between him and his wife, to grooming, or that a freeze frame taken from one of his YouTube videos proves that he is a Nazi. Of course, I'd be remiss not to mention that this is a pattern within the commentary community at large, as factual information is not at all important to these people. Commentary YouTube is a grift. Making actually informative videos is of no concern. What's important is what's trending and the narrative which is most engaging without much thought from the viewer. Commentary YouTubers are essentially the tabloid journalists of the internet age. There are many larger videos about Gamin4Hope which could be mentioned. However, I'd like to focus on a small, largely unknown channel which exemplifies this best. Doomfist is a comparatively small commentary channel whose gimmick is feeding a script into an AI text-to-speech model that samples Doomfist from Overwatch. These videos are, apart from straight-up reaction videos, the most transparently lazy commentary videos I have ever seen. Plagiarism was for a while a pretty widely discussed topic within the YouTube community, as many video essayists were exposed for reading off articles or just copying other films, receiving much backlash for their deceitful and dishonest behavior. Within the commentary genre, however, plagiarism is a feature, and often quite transparent. Doomfist videos on Gamin4Hope are constructed of other videos which he plays and pauses occasionally to restate that which was literally just said without adding any new context, insight, or explanation. That, and Reddit comments which he has copy-pasted into his text-to-speech program. Okay, so I'm recording this in post. One thing I didn't notice when I was writing the video is that even the filler gameplay footage isn't his. He couldn't even be bothered to record 10 minutes of a quick play game. Just as an example of how deep this grift goes, when questioned by a commenter on one of his TikTok videos on whether or not the voice used is AI, he states that it isn't. Now, whether or not his voice is AI generated or not is not something I deeply care about. I remember a time when using a poor quality text-to-speech model was a stylistic choice. But lying about it, not to alienate the audience you're trying to attract, is really funny. How much AI is used within his workflow is not something I can confidently conclude. However, I definitely could suspect a generative text AI model being used for his scripts. This would, however, be completely unnecessary due to the lackluster amount of self-made input found within these videos. A large part of why I have honed in on this creator in specific is actually because he has stolen content directly from me, using my intro for not just one of his YouTube videos, but 3, also using it for his most popular video on TikTok. Now, of course, this is fair use, because he says so in the description. I do think it's a little bit suspicious if you feel the need to put a fair use disclaimer under all your videos. By the way, guys, I am not a kid rapist. Now, to be fair, out of the 4 videos mentioned, one of them could maybe be considered fair use. Just addressing some criticism, which I'm sure will come my way. Yes, him using a video I made, which is composed of other people's intellectual property, is copyright infringement. My original video can be argued to be transformative. His use of that video cannot. I don't quite understand where people got the idea that an extremely conservative copyright policy, which explicitly favors copyright holders, is actually radically liberal, and that the only requirement necessary for re-uploading someone's entire creative work is putting a fat, ugly face in the corner. Just to be clear, I am less concerned about the legality of the content used, and more about the morality of it. We as a community do not do nearly enough self-policing nowadays. Content theft and laziness used to get you ostracized by the community. Nowadays, it is often the biggest members of our community which engage in such behavior. I don't know how much Doomfist actually cares about the opinions he's expressing or the content he's producing. You'd assume from his output that he doesn't. However, something you'll often find behind channels like this is a person with a very inflated ego. There's a chance he actually views his work as important, and his content to be good. I have characterized this man as a grifter, However, it needs to be mentioned how much effort actually goes into creating videos like this. Long-form content like this, even when every corner-cutting strategy is utilized, it still takes considerable effort, and looking at his channel, the effort is certainly not worth the reward. Sure, a couple of videos of his have blown up, however, what good is that when you don't have enough subs to earn money from AdSense? With the rise of AI slop, corporatized YouTube, and other creators just in it because they believe it to be an easy way to make money, it is quite cathartic to see someone fail miserably in this endeavor. I do still believe that content produced without passion, and with no other motives, other than fame or financial gain, is still noticed by most viewers. Although the piggies are content with their slop, your success will not last long past the trends you attach yourself to. Also, if you find a method which you see as a quick and easy fast track for success, you better hope you're first. So, you have learnt how the sausage is made. Now, where does that leave us? Will Gamin4Hope ever stop receiving hate? Probably not. Unless he retires, that is. Previously, people trolled Gamin4Hope just for the love of the game. Now that there's financial incentive involved, well, no one would ever want to retire their cash cow. Importantly, if you are just a viewer, and you still hate Gamin4Hope, ask yourself, what good does expressing that hatred do? The reason for his continued success is, ironically, people like you. Gamin4Hope's relevance prevails due to the loudness of his detractors. The conclusion is the same as it was last time, and therefore it must be restated. Go touch some grass.